vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse, qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin. La vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse, qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin.
Après minuit.
My good friend Janae, thank you for doing this.
Oui. Janae is a good name. I often go by Jean.
What?
As well.
Yeah.
Jean,
I always called you Janae. I don't know why.
J'adore le Janae. But my name is Jean, like Eugene.
All right. Okay.
Like Gene Kelly. You know Gene Kelly?
Mm-hmm.
No?
Nope.
The dancer? You know Gene Hackman?
Nope.
The actor? You know Gene Wilder?
Nope.
The actor?
Excuse my ignorance.
No. There's not many Genes left. Probably the last one. Gene.
All right.
Is
Okay.
the name. Last name is Laufenberg. Laufenberg.
Sounds
B-E-R-G.
Deutsch, Germany.
Well,
Not
yeah,
now?
I guess many years ago I had some relatives. My father's side was German. My mother's side was Irish and Polish. And in America, everybody gets mixed together.
Yeah, everyone comes from
Yeah, so
somewhere.
I don't even know, what I am or often who I am. So I'm joking, of course. But yeah, Gene Laufenberg. And it's a pleasure to be with you on your show.
Thank you. We were talking just before the show about the psychology, and you are a psychologist, right?
I am I study clinical psychology. I have a master's in clinical psychology. And I am a licensed psychotherapist with the state of California.
All right.
So
Okay.
that's a cool thing. Now I live in France now. I lived in France for 6 years. And I still have my license in California. When and if I return, I would, of course, love to resume my practice there. But life takes you to strange places, kind of unexpected places. And in this case, I unexpectedly, more or less, wound up here in Paris.
Yeah. So when you say clinical psychologist, what is the difference between psychologists in general? So
Well,
when you say
there's many different types,
types,
for
yeah.
lack of a better term, of psychologists. In the sense of clinical, in my case, we studied everything, particularly mental illnesses.
All right.
And that's really where I did a lot of my work. I worked at a hospital at a unit, the mental health unit. I worked there for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a locked unit, as they say, for the most part, which is
What's the name?
a locked unit. This
All right,
is the
okay.
vernacular that they used, where it's people that were having episodes of psychosis. So a majority of the patients,
Schizophrenia, okay.
schizophrenia,
Yeah.
bipolar disorder, myriad things, depression, but that could be, let's say, the suicidality.
Mm-hmm.
And then people would come in, and if you had a suicide attempt in the state of California, you had a mandatory 72-hour hold, which means that you had to be in the hospital for at least 72 hours to be examined by
Psychiatrist, I think, and psychologist.
psychiatrists, a whole team of people, and to see, if you were comfortable, if they were comfortable, and they thought you were ready to go back into the outside world to resume your life there. And the thing with the hospital basically is you're treating people to stabilize them and then let them get back to their lives.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but I think in the United States you can't have some statistic. Sorry, I don't know the word in English about suicide and all that. It's forbidden. No.
It's against the law. I mean, if that's
Exactly. Yeah.
what you mean. But I think most people that are trying to hurt themselves like that really aren't considering that component. And more people than you think have attempted it.
Oh, yeah.
From desperation, from a lot of different reasons. Some people only have one attempt, or for whatever reasons, and some people it's a little more chronic.
Yeah, that's a dark subject to start with.
It truly is, folks. It may get better from here, but it's
yeah. But it reminds me a good song that I really like from Metallica, "Fade to Black."
Oh, okay.
Yeah, "Fade to Black," and every time James Hetfield sing that song. He says, "This song is about suicide. If you have something, just get it off your chest and talk about it, please."
Quite true. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Don't suffer in
So,
silence. There's
no,
a
don't
lot
suffer in
of
silence. If you,
a lot of places to go for help.
exactly, yeah, and you're not alone. You're
No,
not,
never alone.
you're never alone.
And often it is just at a very, very dark moment. It's a very impulsive thing. But if you're successful at it, you'll never be successful in anything again because you're gone. And just that one moment could end your life. But I've witnessed people who have tried to kill themselves, harm themselves, and they went on to live prosperous, happy, healthy lives.
Exactly, yeah.
I've seen that all the time, and I wouldn't probably be in the field if I didn't see that part.
Exactly, yeah. We need to talk about that a lot, I think, about people, like, they try to harm themselves, but after that, like, they have a great life too. It's possible,
or a
yeah.
good life, or whatever life gets you, but you have a life.
Exactly.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah. That's, yeah.
And you only get one. I mean, unless we're adding a component of religiosity here.
Yeah.
You got one life, and we've all been ups and downs. We've all experienced those ups and downs.
Yeah,
and some of those downs, you get into that rut. You think there's no way out. You're getting deep into that hole, man. You think there's absolutely no way out. And then when you eventually do find a way out, however you do, then you go, oh, that was it. I'm so glad. I'm so happy that I was
and after
able
that, you appreciate
to see it now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like someone once said, you need to experience some, how can I say, some shadows in order to appreciate the sun.
Right, the darkness and the light.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the whole thing. So you study psychologist. You worked in California, right?
Oui.
Yeah, I have another question. If you have a license in California, do you can work in another states?
Well, no.
In the US?
Actually, it's kind of like being a lawyer in the states, where every state, the 50 states, whatever, there's different rules, there's different tests, exams, there's different qualifications for you. So you have to take a new series of exams and reapply in whatever state you decide to go to. I lived in California for many, many years, and California seemed to be the place for me. I mean, I really loved California. And but that's California. But now I live in Paris, so I don't practice psychology anymore, at least not as a clinical therapist, certainly. I don't. I'm a television writer here and in Paris.
Yeah.
I do that now. That was my other occupation, and I went back and forth kind of. And when I was in college, I studied psychology, and I also studied television and film. And then I mostly started working in television.
Yeah.
And some movie work.
Yeah. And when was that started? Like, which year?
Oh.
Quelle année?
Well, you're going to age me. So, I'm only 20 years old. Steph, what are you doing? That was...
you're 35.
35,
it's all right,
yeah.
35.
Well, I think my
You're
t-shirt...
35. I'm 15. So.
This t-shirt is actually 35 years old. That started in the early 90s. So I was a Jersey boy. I grew up in New Jersey. Jersey City, New Jersey was my place of birth. And then I lived in New Jersey for many, many years. Studied in New Jersey. And I had the showbiz bug. There were only two things that ever really interested me in my life. That was showbiz, whatever big umbrella you want to call it, music, television, movies, that kind of thing, and psychology. But at that point, I thought, well, maybe let me try this television thing to be a writer.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to California to give it a shot, which is kind of what a lot of people do. They go to California, LA, Hollywood, baby, in pursuit of being an actor or a director or a writer or, a bunch of different things. And that's what I did. And through some good luck and some hard work and more good luck, I was able to have a career in television for many years.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked on mostly sitcoms or animated, I guess you would call adult animation, things that were geared towards,
It's like South Park and all that.
Well, I never worked on South Park, although I do love that show incredibly. I worked on Family Guy.
Yeah.
That was probably my most.
Which season?
Oh gosh, 3 and 4 maybe. Early. I also worked on. I worked a little bit on a show called a part of Animaniacs. I don't know if that was your generation or you saw that growing up, but there was a show called Pinky and the Brain, which I wrote a few scripts for. Another show called Duckman, which is an animated show, which had a huge cult following, if that's not an oxymoron. That was also like kind of cutting edge at the time. So I did a lot of that, but I also did some regular sitcoms. I don't know if you're familiar with the television show Clueless.
Clueless. No.
I'm sorry, the movie Clueless.
The movie? No.
Yeah, that was a big thing in the 90s. And they did a television adaptation. I was a producer and writer on that. Bounced around. Then I started going into more children's television. Again, animation. And I worked for Nickelodeon for a little bit. And I went back to sitcoms, and I wrote a action adventure show that I was consultant on for a year. You know, you kind of bounce around. You're like a journeyman, just like to see where the next job is. And you have a skill, and you bring that to whatever the project is, and you adapt that to whatever you adapt your skills to that particular project. So I did a little movie work. I sold a couple screenplays, punched up a few screenplays, which is you take a screenplay and try to make it funnier if it's a comedy or clear some story problems or maybe some character issues or whatever. Did a little bit of that. Nothing that really got made for the most part, but that was my life for a long time. And it was wonderful, exciting. It was, a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah.
Very tumultuous, as life is, but particularly I reckon Hollywood life. And then I got to the point where I started finding I was missing something, perhaps. And television is wonderful, and writing television and writing comedy is like a dream come true. But I guess maybe it was a little frivolous on some way. And I was like, well, what more can I do with my life? And that's when I started looking into becoming a therapist, returning to school and getting my master's.
Oh, my God.
So I did that
Okay.
at that point, and that was not an easy road either. It took some time. And then after that, I interned and I worked with various populations as a therapist, in the field of psychology.
Yeah.
I worked with children. I worked with people in recovery, all kinds of populations. And then I wound up at the hospital to do an internship there. And then eventually I was offered a position to be a therapist on this unit. And that was also a very good thing. And we'll talk, obviously we're going to talk more about that. But then again, by circumstance and luck, I still wrote, I'm still writing, but kind of like as a side gig. I somehow got an offer from a company in Paris to come over here and work on some shows. And I did. I took it up. I figured, well, let me try this. It's a wonderful chance. I mean, not too many people are offered this opportunity to.
Have you been to Paris before?
Yeah, a few times. And, it's Paris. I mean, and this is the show. I mean, I love Paris. And for a long time, I would go to Europe like fairly regularly, but I didn't go to France for some reason. I always went to, I was in Copenhagen and Prague and England a lot and just a bunch of different places. And I finally came to Paris. I was like, oh, I get it. Oh, I see what it's all about, and it's a beautiful city. I love living here.
But visiting Paris is not like living in Paris.
Well, I mean,
it's a different thing. No, you see, you see all the
different challenges.
Yeah.
I am still quite in love with the city and my life here. If there is an element of this being a novelty or something, that hasn't worn off. I still can't believe that I live here, and it's been 6 years.
6 years.
6 years, and it goes by quick. So I figured I would try it for 1 year and just see what what it was like. I only knew one person here, and I came, and it was good. There were, some difficulties. Life always has some difficulties.
Yeah,
some
yeah.
roadblocks that are thrown up for you. That
Especially when you don't speak the language. I think this is a this is a
je,
hard thing when you
je,
come here and
je parle un peu français. So I moved to Paris. I knew one person here.
Mhm.
And it's great to live here. Obviously, there were some things that you didn't quite foresee. I always came to Paris in the summer, for example, and I thought it was just beautiful all year round, and I wasn't used to the gray skies and the rain, which is basically from October till about May. So that was a switch, especially coming from Los Angeles, and other things. But I liked it, and I work in English here because a lot of the television shows that I do are co-productions with different countries. So even though I work for French companies, it will be a project between, let's say, France and Italy, or France and Germany, or France and UK. So with that, the agreed language to use
it's
English.
Yeah,
So
for
that
sure.
was lucky for me that I could write in English on these shows. So I did it for a year to see what it would be like, and then 1 year became 2, and then 2 became COVID.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
And that was a scary time. I mean, it's weird what a big part of our lives it is, and how we've basically just moved on and kind of forgot about it.
Forgot about it.
But
Yeah.
I mean, could we truly forget about it?
I
Because
know.
it was scary, and it was
Scary thing. Yeah.
It was a scary thing. It was unlike anything else we ever experienced. I think we all experienced some trauma.
Exactly.
At whatever level at that point.
Yeah.
Anyway, that kind of
was horrific. Yeah. I do remember, especially living that like between two countries.
Mm-hmm.
Just like for me, for example, I have my family in Tunisia and I have myself here in France, and it's totally two different countries, and the thing's not going so good in Tunisia. It's not so good in France. You're seeing like horrific thing here in France. You're saying, oh, what's going to happen in Tunisia? It's a lot of drama, a lot of overthinking and all that. So it was an easy time. And I do remember my mother had COVID, and she was like really, really ill.
Right.
But she's good right now. And I do remember like those 3 days, it was like hell for me.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and you start to think about all the scenarios in your head and all that, like all the bad idea, all the the dark things and all that. Like it was horrific. I do remember like 3 days. It was like wow, yeah. And when I remember that right now, I was like, oh, it wasn't so easy.
Yeah.
You can like travel to Tunisia at that time. So
you haven't travel anywhere, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you just stuck here in just one bedroom.
Well,
yeah.
A lot of people had that issue.
Yeah, I had my girlfriend at this time, so she had quite like the same thing.
Was she living with you in here?
Not here, but she was like in Voltaire.
Oui.
Like 10 minutes walk from here. Mm-hmm. She's from England, and we had like the same thing going on, like she's like worrying about her family in England. I was like worrying about my family in Tunisia, and
and if you live together, I mean, there's a lot of relationship casualties that happened during COVID, because people were so confined for so long because we were really locked down. So as far as the question of going back to the States, I couldn't leave my house like the rest of us for more than an hour. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. You have to write a paper and sign.
How to write the paper?
I'm gonna bring my dog to poop.
That was some scary times. And I mean, I couldn't leave. So I live by myself, which has its pluses, but also kind of has its minuses when you think the world is coming to an end. And and I remember just like kind of not being able to get any sun, kind of sticking myself out on what little tiny joke of a balcony I have, and just trying to get some sun on my face for a few hours. And then it was like that for a long time, and then, we had those pieces of paper. We can go out for an hour, and everybody, I thought, like with everybody else, is this was it. They never locked us up before, and the world was going to never really be the same. And maybe it isn't going to be the same, but that was a tough time. Anyway, So we lived through the COVID, and then things lightened up and lightened up. Anyway, by that point, there was no admin thing really going on, so I just stayed. And by that time, even with the COVID, with a fair amount of isolation and whatnot, I had realized I had built a life here. Hopefully a very rich life.
social
A social life and just a life.
Yeah. Me too. I do have the same feeling with after like 4 years and a half here in Paris. I do have like neighbors. I do jiu-jitsu. I go like to my favorite bar sometimes. I do have like a lot of people around. So like my life is kind of here now, you know?
That's what happens, right? Yeah. I mean, I go back to LA at times. I was back in November, and I could see myself picking up back there. And someday I might. It's kind of like riding a bike. You know what they say? You learn to ride a bike, you'll never forget.
Yeah.
I think that's the same with obviously moving back to your home country. But what you have here now, hopefully, is good and rich and a place you can thrive. And I feel I have that. So and also life goes by so quick. That's, of course, the biggest cliche in the world, but it does. And then one day I realized, oh my God, I've been here for 6 years, and I hope to stay for a bit longer.
Yeah. So you're planning to stay here in Paris? You're not moving?
As far as I know, I'll be here for the foreseeable future if all goes well.
Okay. You're planning to apply for French citizenship? Nationalité française?
Not at this point, but I would like to get another period of time here and then see what happens.
Yeah, what do you have like as a titre de séjour?
Oui.
Passeport talent?
I do.
Yeah,
right. So I'm here on that.
Yeah.
And which is
it's a good thing.
It's a wonderful thing. It's a permit. It's a residence permit that I can work in France, and it's a cultural exchange thing. And so this particular, what we call carte de séjour, which is the card of stay, is very good. That people from all around the world can come to France and live here and do their art here. And it's for musicians, for dancers, for writers, for painters, for a bunch of different crafts and occupations. And that's how I was lucky enough to be able to come here. And so that's why I'm here and now. And that's because of that I met you, and here we are doing a podcast together.
Yeah, here we are doing podcasts. I think we spoke about that like 10 years, no, not 10 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. I was like, yeah, you'll be maybe my first guest.
Oh, wow.
But you are a busy person, so
that's all relative. But what number guest am I now?
I think you're 6 or 7.
Okay. Well, hopefully not the last.
You're not. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm planning right now to do maybe one guest per 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to arrange that to just to make it
right.
Que ça marche, like you say. And yeah. That's so. I do have a question. Like, what is the difference between carte de séjour and the green card in the United States?
Gosh, I really can't answer that. I really don't know. I mean, I think they're similar, basically, which means you can live and work in another country, but I can't really tell you the specifics. I mean, for every country, it's different, as far as getting a green card. I don't really know. I remember John Lennon had a hard time getting a green card because he was a British citizen who had some drug convictions, and he wanted to live and stay in New York, and it was a very hard time for him. And
John Lennon?
John Lennon. And he had to fight really hard to not be deported, basically.
Why is that? I don't know that story.
Excuse me.
I don't know.
He had some drug convictions. He was also very critical of the Vietnam War and apparently the Nixon administration. And he was a high-profile guy, so the government was like, "What are you doing staying here? You're kind of a muckraker, and we kind of want you out." That's really, so that was the first time I heard the term green card. And he fought and he fought and he won, and he was able to stay in New York. And of course, the sad irony of that is that he was murdered in New York, but I don't think those two things were associated with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yet he loved New York. He loved that life. He wanted to stay, and he did. And anyway, kind of a sad note, but that's really all I know about
The green card.
the
Yeah.
green card. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because I think I do have the green card, but you have like a lot different kind of visa. VK1, G1, I don't know one. There's a lot.
Yeah, brother, I can tell you.
Yeah.
It's every country has different rules for every different country. And it's hard to go through the red tape or whatever of your own whatever your country you're from,
Mhm.
let alone the world. So it gets a little complicated.
Yeah. Going back to psychology, what was I can say the most challenging mental illness that you've been confronted to? You think about it.
The
know.
most challenging?
Yeah. The most hard to treat, the most hard to.
Boy, there are some very acute people, in who are very in a very bad place, almost an unreachable place, and that could be very difficult.
Mm.
And when you lost a patient, not necessarily at the hospital. I don't think we've ever lost anybody in the hospital itself that I worked at, but you would hear about patients who left and they would be in a good place and you would feel good about, their recovery and their chances and their optimism and their spirit. And then a week later or a month later or a year later, you would hear that they were gone, either by their own hand or some horrible accident, or perhaps drugs were involved, and that was tough. A lot of people patients were released, I guess. That's not quite the right term, but you see people go and you felt like they were, in a good place, and then they would be back the very next day. But that's part of treatment.
That's part of it.
It's an ongoing thing often, and that's what would happen in this case. But eventually people do get better. Again, I repeat this, that you can and will get better, and whatever it is, it's hard. Takes a lot of work, a little bit of luck, but you can't do it. And that's really what made the job worthwhile to me, that I could actually help people. You help them in the moment, of course, but then you also want to help them in the long term.
Yeah. That's amazing. I think it's a hard thing to do. And when it works, it really brings good feeling and good.
I think everybody should have therapy. You don't have to necessarily be suicidal, certainly.
No, not really.
But, life is tough and we have a lot of struggles, and life can be frustrating and we have a lot of anxiety and depression. A lot of stuff with our families and our relationships and our self-image and all these things. And I think for a while there was a stigma about therapists and therapy in general, psychotherapy in general, that is slowly lifting. Thank goodness. It always kind of struck me as funny that people go to the gym, all the time. They'll work on their bodies, and they'll go running and they'll, lift weights and do all that, right? Which is great, of course. But what about your mind? What about your emotions? So do you think about them in the sense that you could use some, I don't know, toning? But yeah, what about a gym for your mind? This is a horrible analogy, but I think you kind of know what I mean. Yeah, so we spend, all this time in the gym, but maybe with a therapist, an hour or so a week would be a thing that could really help you out in your life in other ways, other ways that are certainly as important as the physical aspect of your life.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's nice to have a therapist to good thing about therapists, a relationship with a client or a patient and a therapist, is their only stake is to help you to get a better sense of yourself and get through things. And we don't have a stake in you the way your best friend has a stake in you, the way your partner, the way your boss, the way your mom, the way everybody in your life looks at you with a certain thing. Now, with a therapist, there's somebody who doesn't have any of that. All they're doing is listening to you and hearing you and assisting you, helping you, hearing you. And that's a good thing, because people go, I got a problem, I just talked to my buddy. Well, that often can work, but it's not a complete thing. And you know, we have we just as people, we want our privacy. We don't want to let down our friends, or we want to come across a certain way. And there are a lot of things that we hold in that we wouldn't share with people in our lives necessarily. But maybe you could do that with a therapist if you find it to be something that's possibly problematic, and in which case a therapist can help. So I highly recommend therapy.
Yeah, me too.
For everyone.
Me too.
And I'm happy that it seems to be becoming more and more normal. That it's not just considered for quote unquote crazy people. You know, or weak people. Or whatever the hell it used to be deemed as.
Yeah, it's like when you don't have a major problem and you go into therapy. It's like a prevention thing. So you're working on yourself to prevent like some big things can happen in your life.
That's absolutely a part of it. It can also just make your life better. You know, you just be functioning at a higher capacity.
Exactly.
You know, these things may be bogging you down. Some things that you're aware of, and perhaps some things that you're not totally aware of. It's a cool thing. You know, like I said, you want to thrive in life.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as you can. And so as a creative person myself, or at least working in showbiz for many years and being a writer, I have insight into that world, and I also have insight into psychology, and that's kind of unique in a certain way. People think, one thing I often hear when I tell people about me and my life, they go, my God, I can't believe you were a TV writer, a comedy writer, and then you became a psychologist or therapist. You know, how did that, you know, they seem so different. And
I don't see it that different, to be honest.
Well, you're maybe one of the rare cases that doesn't.
Yeah, because writing like so creative. Psychology is like you listening to someone. It's like reading a book too.
Well, that's actually a huge part of it. A lot of it is observational.
Yeah.
You know, to be a writer, not necessarily a comedy writer or a cartoon writer, but it's observational. And it's also, when you write, it's whatever it is, what it really comes down to, you know, it could be invaders from the planet Xenon or whatever it is. It really comes down to the characters. The characters are people, right? Or if you're from the planet Xenon, is a Xenonite, but I digress. It's about characters. We are, in a sense, characters, that we have these characteristics, right? Every single one of us has needs, right? And wants and strengths and weaknesses and frustration. We are so rich, you know.
Exactly.
Our lives and our experiences are just so wonderful and complex and unique to us. So when you're writing a character, you're really writing about humanity on a whole and the psychology of a character. So let's say I worked on Family Guy. I wasn't thinking of, what's Stewie's, what is Stewie's super ego saying, or whatever it is right now. But it doesn't form you in some way. So I really don't see the difference, or, well, obviously, between writing television shows and having a clinical experience with a therapist are obviously two different things.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot of crossover.
Yeah.
And as a creative person, again, I particularly like working with creative people in the sense that sometimes they have issues with their creativity and things like that, trying to be the best they can or overcome the endless rejection or doubt that they experience. And then perhaps maybe I've had some insight to that I could possibly share, but I wouldn't particularly share it because it's not about me. Therapy is not about me so much. It's always about the patient. All I can do is, or what I can mostly do, is let them do the work and I can just adjust the mirrors. You know what I mean? To maybe if they say something, I can focus in on that and say, let's explore this a little bit more. And maybe that opens up something for them that they didn't realize that's maybe holding them back or not giving them the pleasure or the success that perhaps they're hoping for.
Yeah. That's interesting. It's so, can I say it, fascinant? I'm gonna use a lot of French word today.
Go nuts.
Yeah, it's so fascinant. Let's say it like that. The human being is, like everyone, as you said, everyone is special. Everyone of the past,
Right,
with experiences, with insecurities, with feelings, with different. And I do remember one day you said to me something that really sticks in my head. You said to me, your relationship with your mother are gonna define your relationship with women after.
that was
no. Yeah,
that
was like just in a talk. But I've talked a lot with my therapist about that, and it's kind of right. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, that does sound like such a huge cliche with the whole "tell me about your mother," which was
that's
usually associated with Freud. Yeah,
Freud
usually
thing,
associated with Freud, the father of modern psychology. But we are sponges as children, and we soak up everything. And the first significant relationship we have, the strongest relationship we have, is that maternal bonding with your mother. And of course, then you have a very close relationship with your father or siblings if you have them, or if your father's around or whatever. But the mother thing, and I know a lot
as a man or as just as a kid.
As everybody.
Okay.
I mean, your mother, in a lot of ways, your relationship with your mother and your father and their relationship, kind of, if they are together, is as a sponge, comes on you. This is what you see as normal because you don't know anything else but what's in front of you as you're going through these developmental stages as you grow older. So there is a lot to that mother thing. And I don't understand how there possibly could not be. Now, certainly that's not the totality of psychotherapy and treatment, but it can often be a very good starting point. And with all our relationships, I believe that what we've seen in the past informs us in whatever way in the future, some ways positively, some ways negatively. And it's something to open up and look at.
Yeah. It's really interesting because like when you sometimes like I do watch like some shows around that, like, and people when they start talking about their problem, they always start about by the past, and they always start by being kids and memories from their childhood. Right. There's a lot. I saw a lot of that. Like, like when I was a kid, it was like that. I was like that. Like, something sticks on you, just,
right.
Yeah.
Well, and it's always necessary to explore that, and it's always necessary to acknowledge that and look at that. But the thing is, what do we do now, right? So let's say we had this bad relationship with our parents or whatever.
Yeah.
What are we doing now? How are we overcoming that? What do we do that does not hold us back?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, examining it is a very good first step, but then you have to take the work to move
Yeah.
on with your life now. So we don't want to be stuck in the past, if that's the right way of saying it,
Yeah.
because we live in the present.
Yeah, but you can understand a lot of things from the past and apply it in
You
the
can,
present.
but you
Yeah.
have to do a little more than that. You can't just say I had a shitty childhood. I mean, you could say
Yeah.
that if you want, and therefore everything is bad. No, everything should not be bad. Everything can be better, probably,
Yeah.
but opening that up and looking at that, and then finding the tools that you need to get on with this very frustrating and beautiful life of ours is
Yeah.
is very necessary.
Exactly.
You know, a lot of times we take, again, we soak up stuff from our parents. If you had a very anxious parent, the chances are you will have a certain level of anxiety. I mean, how could you not if you're in these developmental stages? You see mom flipping out, dad flipping out, or whoever your caregiver is flipping out. You're a sponge. You go, well, this is normal. It's normal.
It's a normal thing.
Right.
Yeah,
It's normal
exactly,
to
yeah.
get angry in traffic.
Yeah.
It's normal to throw things. It's normal
Exactly,
to
yeah,
cry,
yeah.
you know, at the price of beef, which, you know.
Yeah. Even like communication, like talking about things. If you don't, you didn't see that,
Right.
yeah, you
Yeah.
can like apply it after, you know. If you have like having an argument with your partner and your parents, they don't have any argument. If they do have something, they don't speak for a week.
Right.
So you're not going
Uh-huh.
to, you probably be gonna do the same thing until
Right,
after
uh-huh.
like, yeah, you know.
Well, it could be something that you're doing and that you're not aware of. It could be something
Yeah,
that you're doing that
exactly.
you don't like. And then we're talking very broad
Yeah.
brushstrokes here,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of people who don't necessarily have those things, but they're in there somewhere. So that's what we have is like these distorted thinking patterns. And they're the things that lead to a lot of anxiety and depression in our lives.
No.
And there are a bunch of them. They have a bunch of different names, let's say, and they're all fascinating, but there's like all or nothing thinking, you know, like I'm never going to be successful ever, or always going to be successful. And both of those are incorrect, right? That's a thinking pattern, or you're just very pessimistic about everything.
Or optimistic too. Too optimistic too, yeah.
Too optimistic can also lead to some pain and misunderstanding and frustration. There's making everything a catastrophe. You know, maybe you've had like a nervous parent who was like, "Oh my God, if this doesn't, you know, if this happens, we're all gonna die, or
Yeah.
we're all gonna be thrown out of the house, or we're all gonna starve to death." And you know, in the Western
you're
world,
right,
these
you're
are
right.
usually not problems.
I do have some of that in my personal life. So you can see.
Yeah.
I can see it.
Well, and your parents probably got that from their caregivers, and it goes on. It's a very human thing.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are, quite obviously.
Yeah.
But where do we get it from? That's the thing that we have to look at. But you can break these patterns and then maybe not pass them on to your children if you decide to have any, or pass them on to whoever in your life. So there are things you can do. And there's a very popular field of psychology right now called cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. And that teaches you it's a very hands-on thing. But
it's like for therapists or for just like
it's
everyone?
for therapists. Yeah, well, I mean, it's for everybody, but yeah, it's a modality that is quite popular and rising quite quickly in the field. And that is examining, like, okay, let's say, give me something. So what's
OCD?
No, OCD is different. Cognitive behavioral. Give me something that you. When was the last time? Well, I don't want to, put you on the spot too much here, my friend. But when was the last time you panicked about something? Let's say that turned out to be maybe not panic worthy.
I think this morning when I missed the meeting with my boss.
Okay, so.
But I didn't see it on my calendar. After that, he said to me, like, give me 10 minutes. Give you 10 minutes for what?
Right.
So he was like in another meeting and he was just like waiting for me. I was like, oh, I didn't see it. Sorry.
And at the time, did you think that's it? I'm being fired. He hates me. I'm a loser.
Yeah, but yeah, like not really like that, but I was like, yeah.
I don't mean to put any words in your mouth, but
No. Just like I was like, oh, so sorry, boss. So can we reschedule? Like I do have like all the afternoon for you if you want. So
Right.
I was like, I was feeling bad, but not that bad, you know.
Right. Okay. Well,
But yeah, but if you ask me the same question, like if I had the same situation like 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I was like panicking a lot.
right. Okay.
So I had like some
Right.
work in myself, so I can say like this is something right.
right.
Okay.
Now, and some people, that would be devastating that they would have missed a meeting with their boss. That would put them into an incredible
State of panic,
of depression, of really getting down on themselves, or in catastrophizing, like I'm going to be, and I've seen this with people. I'm late for a meeting with my boss. I missed a meeting with my boss. I am going to lose my job. I am going to be homeless. I'm going to die on the street.
Yeah, take it to the extreme.
Right, and I've seen people just do that in nanoseconds, just like boom, right? And it seems extreme, but it's more common than you might think, right? That's catastrophizing. So what you do in CBT is you take, okay, what's the issue? I was late with a meeting with my boss, and then you start to go, okay, let's look at the likelihood of what's going to happen. And if you go, I lose my job, you go, well, okay, you may lose your job. That seems, if you have a good relationship with your boss and you're not that late that often, that doesn't seem possible or likely. But let's say it is. What's preventing you from getting another job? And then you go, okay. And then you look at that. And by the time you parse everything down, you should be able to get back to, oh, okay, I missed a meeting with my boss. I'll try not to do it again. I'll take whatever steps I can, because obviously it's something that should be avoided, but it's not the end of the world. Now, if you can make that your regular go-to thought when these little instances of these types of things happen, that becomes your second nature. Then you're not going to experience the depression. You're not going to experience the anxiety. And you're not going to experience maybe the self-loathing or whatever. You just go, shit, I'm just meeting the boss. Won't do it again. Let me remedy this and get on with my life.
No, that's interesting. Yeah. And you have to do that every time you're panicking about something?
Well, usually when you start off, yeah, because your mind has been trained to go in this pattern, right? Behavior, right? And then the more you do it, the more it becomes automatic, where eventually you have to work hard at it. It requires work. It requires like a lot of like paperwork even. But, excuse me. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And then that becomes your reflex. So you find that maybe life is getting better, and then you go, oh, I wonder why. And you're not quite as aware of what's going on within you.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing as why you went to the extreme dark side a couple months before therapy.
Yeah.
And why now it's the same exact kind of thing or similar things are happening, and it ain't so bad.
Yeah. Because your behavior, your reaction about the thing changed.
Dig down in a healthy way.
Yeah.
Oftentimes we dig down in an unhealthy way. We beat ourselves up, and that's not necessarily going to make the situation better or our lives better. We think we're really examining the problem, but if you're examining the problem in this blanket negative way and you're just beating yourself up, you're only digging yourself into a deeper hole, emotionally, mentally, etc. So that's, and that's why therapy can help, because you have outside people helping you and go, wait, you don't have to do that. Let's steer back from that, and let's put some, light on the situation. And again, it helps.
Yeah. For sure. But I'm reading a book right now called Bad Therapy. It's like about kids on therapy and all that. And there is a part in the book like talking about there is a bad side, maybe like bad side of therapy. Like everything that's going to help, maybe it can comes with some harms. And the bad side of it, it's like talking about your problem all the time, create rumination, maybe can make the thing much worse.
Well,
It's like,
that's not maybe the
yeah,
best form of therapy.
yeah.
Or that. Well, that's yeah. Well, there is a dark side to every
Yeah,
single
exactly. Yeah.
aspect
It's
of
like second
everything.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know, the dark side to apples. You know,
yeah,
they have a lot
yeah.
of sugar in them. You know. Yeah, I'm not familiar with this book, but I would say if overall, I would say there's just been a hell of a lot more good therapy than bad therapy, and that's something that should be celebrated and looked at.
Yeah.
But certainly, the bad aspect should be examined as well, because it is like everything else is inexact.
It's not that easy to find a good therapist, I think.
Well, it's like, kind of like a marriage to a
Yeah,
certain degree,
It's
but
like find a
also
good partner.
but it's also maybe not somebody who you thought would be a good therapist for you too is something. It just depends on you and where you are in them and what you sense from them. It could be somebody in a million years you never thought you would talk to about anything. Somebody you might not have anything in common with on the surface level, whether it's race or ethnicity or age or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But then you find out, like, as a therapist, this person is really good. As therapists, what I bring to you is I have a skill set, okay? And that's what I have. I studied this. I practiced it, right? That's what I offer to you. I am no guru. I am no perfect human being by any stretch. But I can bring you this stuff. That's my service to you.
Yeah.
Is to help you in these ways. And you can find people that can really help, particularly you.
Yeah. I saw a lot of people get help from therapists.
Right.
So, yeah.
But, maybe if you see somebody and you're not feeling it, after a while, you should give them a chance, or you should give the process a chance. Often, a lot of people start therapy and you just go, oh, hey, I'm done. I don't like this, because it's sometimes very difficult. It's bringing up stuff. Right.
It's so difficult sometimes.
So you should, be aware of that. However, if you feel like you're not clicking, or the therapist isn't really hearing you, or if you feel that is a persistent thing, then maybe the relationship is not right for you, and maybe you should try again with somebody else.
Yeah.
Again, you don't know. I've been in that experience where I've had a few different therapists, and some were better than others.
Yeah, for sure.
And some I thought were just kind of going through the motions or whatever, and maybe that's where I was at, or the lens I was looking at them. But then I found somebody who changed my life, and is probably a very significant reason why I chose to go back into the field
of therapy,
or and become a therapist, because of this one particular person. But I met with a few people before I found her.
All right. Okay. So you've said to yourself, like, I would like to do the same thing to other as he does to me.
Well, yeah, it was a she in this case.
A she, okay.
Yeah, that person was incredibly helpful for me and inspiring for me. But at the time, I was just trying to get out of the hole I was in, and all the stuff that I was dealing with. And she did that, and we were together for a long time. It sounds like we're a couple, but it's not that, of course. But
you still doing therapy right now?
Is she personally?
No, you. Talking about you.
Am I doing? Am I in therapy right now?
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. But yeah. Again, it's very important. I don't see somebody regularly like I used to. But it's good to get a checkup now and then.
Yeah.
It's good to keep the car. Get the oil change in the car. That is your brain and your psyche.
Yeah. L'entretien.
Oui.
I said, yeah, that's great.
Right.
Pretty inspiring and interesting.
Yeah, it's, again, it's all about making the world a better place. Starts with people that are happier and healthier. And if I can contribute to that,
Yeah.
great.
You are doing this.
Thank you, buddy.
La vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin. La vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin. La vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin. La vie est tout de même une chose bien curieuse qui s'est observée entre minuit et 3 heures du matin.
Hello, my Pinkers! This is Charlie. You've just listened to a production signed by Charlie Pink. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, find all our creations on your favorite listening platform and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss anything. For even more Charlie Pink, also visit our website www.charlie.pink and follow us on our social networks. Keep it wild, Pinkers! Catch you very soon!